Anytime we get in the studio a very interesting guest, we like to preview that guest and put it on here on Know the Cause, so you can meet them and weigh how this might impact you or a loved one. How many people have stomach problems? How many wish they knew the cause, but they run from gastroenterologist, internal medicine doctor, all twice my IQ? But they don't learn the most important things during their training: clinical nutrition and clinical mycology. We have a dear friend for 35 years since we moved to Texas, my wife and I and kids, and they became friends with Louie and his wife, Pat, and their kids. And we hung around a lot together and so forth. Louie got sick, and it was probably 15 years ago that it really came to a head. Louie, thanks for coming on. I know you're a little nervous on TV, but don't be. Yeah. This is going to be viewed on TV. Tell your story, and especially why Josh, the guy who finally has helped you so much, is here with us. Take us back to when this all began.
15 years ago, I was in Colorado at a Young Life camp, and didn't really tell anybody kind of what was going on, but I was at the camp doing all the camp things that all the kids got to do, and then at night, at the end of the night, everybody would go to bed, and that's when I would go to the bathroom. And I was basically using the bathroom, and I was getting rid of all the blood, the mucus.
Wow.
And after 4 days, I told my wife, I said, I can't do this anymore. They said, so the nurse, there was a nurse there, and she said, do you mind if I look at your stool? I said, that's up to you.
Yeah.
So she looked at it, and she says, pack your bags, you need to go to the hospital now. We went into Denver, got a scan, treatment. They said, yeah, you got some kind of bowel problems. Here's a diet. I said, what can I eat? And their diet was rice, or the brat diet.
Okay.
You know, I don't know exactly what it is now, but it was, to me, it was the wrong thing. So I came home, went to a GI doctor, asked him, after he scoped me and checked everything out, and I said, what do I need to eat? He says, doesn't matter what you eat. By the time it gets into your colon, it's already digested. It's, you know, it doesn't matter what you eat, because we're probably going to be taking your colon out in 5 to 6 years.
Holy cow. Louie, how old were you then?
I was 45.
A kid.
Yeah.
45 years old. Don't know the, and I know the one thing Josh does that I love, because I've done this for decades when I was working in clinical nutrition. The first question any practitioner should ask is, when did this begin? Gee, we went away to a Christian youth camp. Yeah, I was eating what they were eating, you know, s'mores. Yeah. But yet, Josh, nobody asked that. Get the x-ray, start the medication. I just don't get where we are in medicine today, and I don't see this getting a lot better. Not to denigrate anyone, they're very smart people, but they're regurgitating what the pharmaceutical companies taught them during their medical training.
I think there's merit to both sides. You know, I believe in integrated medicine a lot of the time, which is the use of holistic, functional, and pharmaceutical. But the difference is, if I draw a 6 on the table here, Doug, and you look at it, you see a 9. And I'm over here yelling at you, telling you it's a 6. But if we actually just can take a minute and shift sides, we can actually learn what the other person's seeing and take in information from a different lens. And so there is benefit to not being clinically, professionally trained as a medical doctor, because I'm not shown how I need to look at this 6 or a 9. And the difference being, doctors are taught, let's assess your symptoms. Once we know what your symptoms are, we can give it a word. That's your diagnosis. With this diagnosis, the protocol is we go drugs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this order. And if they don't work, snip, snip, we cut the colon out. What we need to do is go back and create, here's what's going on. Why? Let's go backward, not forward to medication.
Thank you.
Backward to the root.
Thank you.
And it's
Because
simpler than they think.
You can cut out a foot of colon.
Sure.
And next year, since you haven't identified why it grew bad, cut out the next foot. That's why God gave us so many feet. You know, I mean, it's just, to me, absolutely amazing. Louie, you talk about your daughter going online and saying, hey, Dad, there's an organization that I want you to look at. Did you see tapes of Josh first?
No, Josh wasn't on quite yet. I don't think it was, or what I was reading. You know, and it was kind of a support group.
Okay.
That, you know, my wife would actually comment with people and say, you know, this is what we've tried. We've, you know, broth, you know, chicken broth, beef broth, you know, different things that we knew, you know, to help the gut, because, you know, we knew from you that, you know, when you put food in your belly, if you're eating a steak or whatever, it takes your body a lot of energy to digest these foods. And at this time of my life, I didn't need that. I needed something that my body could heal. And so by doing some beef broth, you know, light foods that my body wasn't having to work so hard.
And that's where Josh's word comes in so well, saying, you know, I'm kind of integrative. Without a shot of steroid or getting some steroids to arrest the inflammation, E. coli overgrowing or other bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, without antibiotics, but then stop that. You didn't cure anything, you stopped the bleeding, right? Now you gotta help that diseased tissue before it is snipped out. That was kind of your approach. What does IBD or IBS, what's the difference in the two?
Not much. This is the difference. So if we use my fancy pointer here, what I look at, my favorite analogy is wearing a pair of shoes without socks, and it rubs and rubs till it blisters and bleeds. We've all been there. We've all worn a pair of shoes that's too tight, too big, whatever. But the rate at which that rubs raw till it becomes bleeding really depends on the size of the shoe. Do you have sand in it? Is it wet? Is your foot too big? What's the shape of it? And those different factors that we have, be it diet, nutrition, lifestyle, be it any kind of fungal issue, medications, history, right, from development of gut microbiome. All those things make a big difference. And so we start looking at how they develop over time. We can see that the difference between IBS and IBD is a matter of severity. If you put the symptoms on a Venn diagram, they're identical. It's just the symptoms of IBS are lesser than the symptoms of IBD. Once I worked that backwards, I put medicine on its head and said, let's do this differently. 93% success rate.
How important was that intro Louie gave to you? Because I know we've always gone away with our kids, and I veer from my diet. You're in a car driving for half a day. The kids want to stop and get a burger and fries. Well, that's not going to kill them. You know, how important was that initial, his initial gut reaction to you?
Well, it's really interesting because we talk about the initial reaction to what I do. It's really nice to have the information received really well and people becoming curious. But I'll tell you, Doug, when I started out a little bit earlier in my career, I put up a post on Facebook. I said, I believe 9 out of 10 cases of ulcerative colitis can be reversed. Somebody took that as a screenshot, put it on Reddit. I was harassed. I was threatened. Of
course.
I had people booking out my calendar for months on end, like nope at fu.com, just because like, how dare you say this can happen? And here we are with a 93% success rate. And so it means the world to me when someone comes in and says, first of all, I trust you, right? That's important. All of us want to have that trust factor. On the second hand, it's really interesting when they lean in and go, well, what I'm doing is not working. I'm open to something different. But so many of us, unfortunately, especially when it comes to diagnosis, identify with that diagnosis. It becomes part of us. And as part of a coping mechanism, we accept it. You know, it becomes an identity thing. And so for me to challenge that hope, that identity, that safety net we now created of I accept this will be me forever now. My doctor told me I have confirmation bias. My whole circle is sick. There's nothing I can do. How dare you tell me otherwise? It becomes very challenging. But someone like Louie came in. He said, this makes sense.
I'm ready.
Let's do it. And we
in
did.
other words, these people, many of them are ready to break. Many people die of this disease. Many teenagers. It boggles my mind, die of this disease. How broken are you? How embarrassed are you? How much has this changed your world that you wouldn't challenge someone that said, I think 90% of these cases can be fixed? I'm sure the first thing Josh heard was, where'd you get your MD? Because doctors say only 10% of these can be. There's a problem. Houston, we got a problem. The medical community indeed says, you know, you can just treat these. Do you love the word, you guys, manage? You have diabetes, we're going to manage you. You have cancer, we're going to, you manage an apartment building. You fix a health problem. And yet that's not where we are in medicine today because they were, here's what blows my mind, Louie. You got a doctor with twice my IQ. I mean, he had to be to become a doctor. Being told somewhere in that 4 years, you're not smart enough to fix anything. Zip this and reach in your right front pocket and start prescribing. Doctor, I'm here today because I have 5 symptoms. I mean, it's just, they're so smart and yet they're handcuffed to do what we, the people, want. Does that frustrate you, Josh?
To no end.
Yeah.
I do want to be careful because I do owe my career where it's at right now, the amount of reach we have. I've connected with some like world famous doctors on my podcast, and it's all been because of doctors. And so my job here isn't to discredit or shame doctors for doing what doctors are trained to do. The challenge that I come into is doctors really have their hands tied in a couple ways, 3 typical ways. 1, they're not taught the information. 2, they have to meet a certain quota of patients per day to meet the insurance model. They can't learn the information. And then the third one is some, quite frankly, don't want to know the information. And so you run with our hands tied here, and a lot of them, we say we want to manage. I get frustrated with that response, with that process, because, well, look at Louie. I mean, he's feeling incredible. Symptoms are gone. Gained 30 pounds. Looks great. Feels great.
Yeah, he
He's
does.
out working again. Like, it can be done. But even when you show these cases to many medical doctors, gastro specialists, they look at that and go, well, don't worry about it. Like, wouldn't you want to see that outcome for everyone?
Josh and I can't use the C word. Can't say you're cured, or this is gone forever. Where's Pat's heart, your wife, and your heart on this? Zoom me forward 2 years from today.
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of hope with this last flare-up I had. Completely different than what had been going on in the past 13 years prior to that. I was wearing diapers.
Yep.
I was weighing 135 pounds. I was in bed 7 months.
I remember, yeah.
It was tough.
You believe in God.
Oh, yes.
God heals,
Yep.
and sometimes he uses wretches like me to try and help you along the way. Number 1, congratulations. Number 2, I'm just as optimistic as you are. I get to see this guy in town all the time, and everybody's watching him get bigger and handsomer, like you said. It's going to make you more handsome. Get bigger, and we're just thrilled. He's been through a horrible, horrible thing. Unfortunately, Louie, I'll never understand a gastroenterologist who say these words. It doesn't matter what you eat.
Yeah.
He's a gut specialist. Doesn't matter if you put lighter fluid in your diesel Mercedes. Doesn't matter. Congratulations and thank you from Louie's heart, his family, and my heart on what you're doing, because it's not just Louie. I hear it's your son-in-law now. How's he doing?
He started 2 months ago?
Yeah, maybe.
And
Really?
says he hasn't felt this good in 10 years. I mean, he went to work for me for a little while, and I'd say, you ready to go? And he'd be throwing up,
Yeah.
puking.
God,
And I was like,
Can't go to
you
work.
got to get this fixed. And, and it finally, where's he going to be in 3 years? He's got 2 children, my grandkids.
Yep.
You're not going to have a life with them. It's going to be tough. And he called Josh.
Yeah.
And
What an exclamation point on this short interview. Amen. Way to go, Josh. Way to listen. You were somebody who was desperate, Louie. How desperate are people? Well, not desperate enough to leave my doctor and find someone who may know something about this. Congratulations, Josh. Well done.
It's
Well
been
done.
a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, if you'd like more information on what Josh does, really simple, Gut Solution. GutSolution.ca, Canada. GutSolution.ca. Thanks, guys.